And we're here. Jen. Well, it looks like it's just me so far, guys. So welcome to Monday Night Generational Change. That's Jen somewhere in the woods, and I'm Peter, and I'm using a new camera.
Jen, yeah, it looks like you have the mute. You have the mute button clicked on StreamYard. It looks like.
Jen has the mute button clicked. Well, unmute that mute button, Jen. So I hope you guys are all doing good. I'd like to get some feedback from the audience. I am using a more HD camera now. I don't know if that makes any difference. I'm actually going to slightly adjust the light a little bit. Yeah, there we go. I think that should work. Jen, if I'm running solo, you got to let me know. But anyway, hope you guys all had a great weekend. And certainly, if anybody had a good Valentine's Day. As a single person, I am glad that I didn't have to spend a lot of money. I know it tends to be one of those hallmark holidays where you kind of have to go out there and make a good impression. But thankfully, I'm not somebody who indulges too much in the sweet stuff, especially the sugar. Holly, great to see you. Thanks for checking in. And so hopefully all you guys are doing well. There are 1,000,001 stories we're obviously going to cover tonight. John Kiriakou, who has been on our podcast before, he's an amazing, I was going to say thought leader, but I don't even know if that's necessarily the right word. He's just somebody who has taken a great deal of risk in his life, especially the fact that, as Colanello points out, he is an ex-member of the CIA. And if anybody knows a thing or two about the sort of inner workings of these alphabet organizations, it's definitely John. And so I would preface it with, wow, this camera's a lot different. So this is a lot more HD. You guys can see the pores on my face. Yes. Well, thank you, Chip. If anybody's going to be honest, it's going to be Chip. So I appreciate that very much. And I'm glad to hear that I look very clear. Make sure to smash that like button and share and subscribe if you haven't already. This is also a very seminal moment for us as a channel. For that reason, we have passed the 20,000 subscriber marker. It took us long enough to get here, but considering how long it took us to get to 10,000 subscribers, this definitely is a lot more welcomed, I would say, because it was in a much shorter period of time. So let's see what it's going to take to get to 25,000, 30,000, and keep growing, which is obviously the goal. Jen, thumbs up, anything? I now see a white screen. I don't actually see you.
You see me?
No.
Hi. Hello.
No, nothing. I could see you now, but you're frozen.
And I don't know what to do because I see myself. So
if you just go to audio, that might be better. Give the audio a try. Me? I can hear you, but it's
I am, you fucker.
Cursing at me?
You know what? This is not, I'm not going to do this the whole show. So why don't you just go solo? Because this is not working. I'm not getting any better.
No, I can hear you fine now with just the audio without the visual.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Are you sure? Because it took a while to respond.
Well, you are on a delay, but I can hear you.
I was petting a deer.
You were petting a deer. I kind of made that out.
Yes.
Can you see me okay? Can you hear me okay?
See, it's fine.
Yeah, unfortunately, your audio is not coming through.
Tell me if you.
No, your audio was coming through okay for a minute, and then it kicked. And now it's like, it's blotchy. Yeah. Chip wants to know if the deer eats your Wi-Fi. Jen Collins suggests that you use your cell phone. If you can try that, let's see how that works out. Yeah, so we're definitely going to see if Jen can come back on using her cell phone. usually, in this case, for those of you who don't know, Jen has a camper, and she is now in Southwest Georgia somewhere up in the mountains. And unfortunately, as you can imagine, the connection is not very strong. So I would like to think and can hope that if she comes back with her phone, it might be a little bit better. So we'll see what ultimately transpires. Crossing fingers for the best. And yes, Kat Negrita, we passed the 20,000 chip, 20, I'm reading shit at the same time, the 20,000 subscriber marker. And we did put out a post on Instagram as well as YouTube. It took us a while to get here. She is trying to get back on. I believe that is Rachel. Good to see you, Rach. Guys, make sure you smash that like button, share, and subscribe. We're going to have lots to talk about this evening, hopefully with Jen. And so if this is going to be a version of Pontificating with Pete for the time being, although our esteemed guest should be arriving any minute now, we are going to have not only John Kiriakou, but also other members of his YouTube channel. And if you are not currently subscribed to the DeprogramShow on YouTube, I believe Colin has put the link in the description. Please make sure that you get over there and you subscribe to John Kiriakou's channel. I think that will definitely be worth your time. And we certainly appreciate anything and everything that he does. Now, let's try this again. Jen, I think you're on your cell phone, yes?
I'm here. Do you hear me?
I can hear you good.
Are we good?
Let's hope it holds.
Well, I'm not putting on the light, so this is as good as I'm going to look. Rosacea, all, baby.
What happens when you get stranded up in the mountain?
I
did tell you, you're probably going to have to go to like a hotel.
No, I'm not going to a hotel. That would be quitting, and that is not going to happen. I am going to spend the night in my camper and turn into a freesicle before I will go anywhere else. Okay?
No.
Power tonight.
I'm not talking about staying at a hotel. I'm talking about going to the hotel to just get the Wi-Fi connection. That's all.
You have no idea where I am.
Yeah, I do.
There's no hotel. What?
All right, so you got to
There's no hotel.
Drive like an hour. Drive an hour away and get to a hotel.
No. This is as good as it gets for now. So onward.
Well, let's hope that it holds, like I said. So there's like 1,000,001 different stories that are going on right now. We're not going to have an opportunity for us to go solo on that, but we will have our esteemed guest, Mr. Kiriakou, and he also is coming with some friends. So his channel, the DeprogramShow, he also does with a lady named Michelle Whitty and Ted Raw. And for anybody who's been following John Kiriakou's work for a while, this is a very interesting time that we're living in right now, because we have a president of the United States who, for the most part, is running things in a very dictatorial manner, which is not entirely surprising, because the alphabet organizations, if you will, did everything in their capacity to destroy him over the last 8 years. So it's not surprising that he's basically running his own show. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of things that these alphabet organizations led by the CIA are not going to be doing behind the scenes. You're right. It is what Trump said he would do. Since they decided that they had to destroy him and they weren't able to successfully do that, he decided that he was going to do it his way. Like I said, I can't blame him because the system is broken. And Jen, as you've pointed out many times before, Trump is going to facilitate the revolution in a much more accelerated fashion than anybody else who is in that position would ultimately do.
Oh, absolutely he does. That's the whole point.
So I believe
Yeah, am I there?
No, you're still here. It's going to be a spotty connection, but we're going to do the best. Okay. And I don't know if Ted is here yet, but we are going to bring in our guests. And so,
okay, just know that I cannot simultaneously, guys know I cannot somehow simultaneously see chats and like I can't do both. So if somebody wants something from me, you're going to have to go through Peter.
All right, so I guess I just have to handle everything, but that's okay for tonight.
I'm just here for the eye candy.
So be it. For those of you who remember, Mr. Kiriakou became the only CIA officer to be convicted of exposing the CIA's interrogation program, waterboarding, among other things. Got sentenced to prison because he told the truth. And as we have seen with a lot of other whistleblowers, Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, and so on, telling the truth is considered a crime. Telling a lie is considered justification. We're trying to change that narrative, and with so many important topics to cover right now, as we bring in our esteemed guest and his colleague, Michelle Witte, it's important to note, remember, that they have a podcast called The DeprogramShow. Make sure that you subscribe there. But without further ado, John Kiriakou and Michelle Witte, welcome to Generational Change.
Hi.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. John, it's good to see you again. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, John.
John, you there? You hear us? Something is awry.
I suspect you can't.
John,
as
we
long
can see
as it's
you.
not me.
Yeah, let me text him.
It's all good.
Oh, I think your audio is good, John. Can you hear us? Thumbs up. I don't think he can hear us. I think that may be the issue.
Got it.
There we go.
Hi.
How are you guys?
Welcome back.
Good to see you.
How are
Thank
you?
you. Doing well, thank you. How are you?
Welcome. I'm good. We're entering into a whole new universe now. And I feel like every time I feel like we hit the bottom of the crazy, like to the real crazy, it's like it does not cease. So the last time you were here, we were in crazy because it's always crazy.
Yeah.
And now what seems to me, we have a president saying he wants to dismantle the deep state, but all he's doing is creating a different deep state. That's what it looks like to me.
Mm-hmm.
So
We're creating
I'm
the Trump
curious, like
state.
what your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I have to agree. You know, first of all, I keep hearing from Republican friends that Donald Trump learned so many lessons from his first term, right? He said he was going to dismantle the deep state. Instead, he just strengthened the deep state with appointments like Mike Pompeo and bloody Gina Haspel, and he kept Christopher Wray at the FBI. But he learned so much; it's going to be so different. And then it's actually not different. If anything, he's going to make the FBI, he's going to personalize the FBI so that it's essentially created or recreated in his image. I get that every president wants to influence these governmental bodies because they're the president, of course, but it's far beyond. He said he wants to physically tear down the FBI building, which is fine with me. But
Yeah.
But he wants to scatter everybody around the country, and they're going to do exactly as he tells them to do. Today, we all saw these reports that the CIA will undergo a reduction in force, aka layoffs, but they will also be on the front line of this new Trump policy to target the CIA against the drug cartels. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you're going to turn the CIA into an adjunct of the DEA, which has never been done before, because usually it's the CIA helping to get the drugs into the United States rather than keeping them out. How do you propose doing that? You're going to have to take people off of China, off of Russia, off of counterterrorism, and refocus them on, what? Border security? Drug interdiction? I don't understand it. None of this makes any sense to me.
I mean, as you were talking, John, I was thinking, because I was thinking you could just take, just in the figure of Elon Musk, right? You have an unelected man, one of the wealthiest or the wealthiest person in the world, who's been put, sort of put by decree into a position of some authority. He's got government contracts with NASA. He's got contracts with the DOD. He's sort of like, by definition, this is a deep state figure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that is, And maybe, I guess what you could say in the elevation and empowerment of Elon Musk, he's got control over communication systems and whatever, and also in proposing like combining the CIA and DEA. He's not actually destroying the deep state, but he is kind of just making its machinations visible, which I guess, I'm not going to give him credit for it, but it does in some ways. The thing that Donald Trump has always done has made it actually easier to identify the problem. You know what I mean? And so I guess, okay, well, thanks. Because this stuff is happening behind the scenes anyway. Even the Panama stuff.
Yeah.
This is like a sort of offhand remark by drop site reporter Ryan Grimm, but he's like, well, it was either like the CIA overthrows the government behind the scenes, or we just do something overt like this. I don't agree with either, but it's a little easier sometimes to talk about the stuff that's right in front of your face that nobody's.
He facilitates the revolution.
Yeah.
Let's hope, right?
Hey, I sent Michelle a link to a new bill that was just sponsored in the House of Representatives on Wednesday. It was done by a Republican congressman I had never heard of from the state of Georgia, but it's HR 1161, and it would authorize the president to seize Greenland by force and to rename it Red, White, and Blue Land.
Beautiful.
When I first saw it, I thought this has to be from The Onion, right? And so I didn't retweet it or anything. So then I went to the Congress.gov site to look it up, and it's like, oh my God, sure enough, this is actually a bill. It's real.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, The Onion. I actually feel bad for The Onion because The Onion is no longer. It's completely obsolete. There's no point to have that anymore. Something I wanted to mention, like this was my first thought when they created Doge in the first place. Like, what? It's ridiculous. But if you're not going to go after the Pentagon, I don't understand what the point is of doing anything else.
Exactly.
And it's obviously a charade.
There's something else that bothers me very much. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Continue.
One quick point. Forbes magazine released last week its list of the wealthiest people in the world, and Elon Musk is worth $446 billion, $500 billion. I don't care how hard a person works, you can't be worth $446 billion. And I'm wondering why there hasn't been a movement to oppose the laser focus of wealth into the hands of so few people. People, we read in our history books about John D. Rockefeller the first, right? The first American robber baron. But his wealth couldn't even approach what Elon Musk's wealth is now. And he's doing it on the backs of the American people. He has these clear conflicts of interest where he's making money from his Pentagon contracts and from his CIA contracts. And nobody's saying anything. And then today, the Washington Post withdrew approval for a full-page ad complaining about Elon Musk's wealth and his conflicts of interest.
Well, you don't think that Jeff and Elon aren't going to be on the same team?
Right, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, when does this become a point of no return?
We're there.
There's this craziness that Trump tweeted.
Well,
today.
Listen, he who saves his country does not violate any law. I make the laws now.
God, that sounds just like him. Oh my God. That sounds just like him.
The scariest part is that you've got almost half, three-quarters of a million people that like the tweet, that think it's acceptable. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not that many. He had, how many votes did he have? 80 million or something like that.
It was a lot.
Right. We get caught up in this idea that everybody who supports MAGA is this, blind, loyalist, crazy person who's, going to be following him, no different than any cult leader has ever been seen before. But we've really reached a point of no return in that this system can't be resuscitated. It's not possible. You can't look at somebody who's got $400 billion and think that person's going to solve the actual problem.
Right.
No, Musk will deal with certain aspects of the broken system that we have, but it's more about his own selfish intentions in terms of what he wants.
Well,
but in
I was
terms
going
of
to say that, what's he going to do to them? I think his goal is to be the first trillionaire. And I think that's
I
what
agree.
he's trying to do.
Yeah, I think so too. Yes.
But when you make a statement like, everyone is all up in arms about this statement of he who saves the country does not violate any law. But you did have President Nixon once say, when the president does it, it's not illegal.
It's not illegal.
So the precedent has been set generations before, and everyone thinks that Trump is this crazy madman who just comes up with all this shit. The only thing he does is he's smarter than people give him credit for. He just applies different elements of past discretions that this country has been getting away with for generations and just saying, well, I'm totally going to do it and you can't stop me. And he's like, well, you want to stop him because you don't like the fact that he doesn't protect empire. That's the reason why people hate his guts, because it's all out in the open now. The Biden crime family, the Clinton crime family, so much of that activity. I've heard your commentary before about Hillary Clinton. Part of the reason she was able to get away with so much stuff for so long is because she's really good at keeping things behind the scenes. Trump, on the other hand, doesn't give a fuck.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. It's unusual to have a person who genuinely doesn't care. And he doesn't care.
No. I don't think he's capable.
I also get a little bit tired of the pearl clutching. Not that everything that's happening isn't terrible, but like, come on, we all want to pretend this is the first time a president has disregarded the law. Like, I think it's not legal to just assassinate whoever you want by drone overseas. Like Trump also is, he's sort of an avatar for this thing that we all knew was going to happen, which is that your actions overseas are going to come home, right? Your foreign policy is going to come home. All these chickens are going to come home. We thought it was super cool when, it was Obama's drone program, right? And it was saving the country doing illegal things out there. And now, so again, he's just saying it out loud. I feel like it's easy to like wander down this path where everything is entirely equivalent. And I don't want to do that. But again, it's just the people right now who are panicking and saying like, I'm mourning for the loss of my democracy. I don't want to be a party pooper, but I just keep thinking, well, what democracy, right? Like, what point are you hoping to go back to when everything was okay, right? And maybe, again, as you said, Jen, like maybe the thing to do is think of what can be built after this destruction, because this destruction was going to have to come in some form.
That's how we have to think.
I wouldn't have chosen this form, but everybody was in the street saying, burn it all down. Well, what did you think that was going to look like?
Yeah.
Right. And again, I wouldn't choose this. And there were other ways it could have happened, but this is how it is happening. So let's not like delude ourselves into thinking that if we just go back to the Biden years or the Clinton years or the Obama years, that everything would be perfect.
Yeah, that is a misnomer.
No, I just think when people are like shocked, I feel like my first sentiment is welcome to the party, man.
Yeah.
Welcome to the party. This has been going on forever. They think Trump is the problem. He's a symptom of our disease. Actually, and I've said it before, I can't think of anyone to better represent this country as what we've become than Donald Trump. I think he represents us perfectly in the world. We are the biggest bullies. We don't know what we're talking about. Everyone doesn't like us. Like he is us.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't like to see it, cool, me neither. Then let's change it. But like something has to actually change in our culture, in our economic structure, in our politics, and we have to do it, deliberately and collectively.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem, because if in fact they are going to audit the Pentagon and they're going to claim that that's what they're doing, the reality, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but in reality, what they're going to do is they're going to do exactly what every austerity hawk that supports the billionaire class has always done. They're going to fire a few thousand employees at the Pentagon, and they're going to say that they cut back on, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, and say, see, we made a difference. Pennies on the dollar, but we're going to say we made a difference, and there are people who will eat it up. If you are not, again, as somebody who worked for the highest alphabet agency in the United States, if you are not going after the contracts, like the ones that I know for a fact, one in particular that was shelled out to a guy that I knew that was a lieutenant in the Army, who knew a guy that got a contract for $25 million to build a gas station in Baghdad How much did he spend on that gas station to actually build it? $500,000. The rest of it, he pocketed the.
My God!
It's the biggest scam running. Raytheon, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics. Yes, they are, the war machine. But don't think for a second that it all gets spent on bombs. It doesn't. It's a way to get rich, and it's been that way for generations. And if you think that they're just going to give it up without a fight, people get killed for trying to F with the military-industrial complex.
I say all the time, it's not an accident that the Washington, D.C. area has the most millionaires per capita of anywhere in America. More than New York, more than Silicon Valley, more than L.A., it's here in Washington. And since the September 11th attacks, we have transitioned into a permanent wartime economy. And one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that we don't just, send money to foreign countries. Here's some money so you can buy things to defend yourselves. It's all in kind. It goes directly from the government to the U.S. defense contractors and the subcontractors and subcontractors, so everybody gets rich. Mm-hmm. And then those overpriced weapons and systems go overseas. But the money stays right here. And none of us are a part of it.
Colin, can you grab that?
None of us here are a part of it.
That's
Colin,
what I mean.
Can you grab that tweet from Musk, please? You pull that one up. So Elon decided to put out a very pointed message regarding whether or not we have a broken social security system.
Yeah,
and
good question.
This is where it starts. Now, do I think that it's possible that this is legitimate? Yeah, it's certainly possible. I'm not saying that it's not, but in accordance with what Musk is putting out there, he is suggesting that there is X amount of people that fall into certain brackets regarding age and demos and so forth, and those that are actually eligible to receive Social Security, which starts at 65.
Right.
And if you scroll down, what you'll see is that evidently there are people who are living into their 150s, according to now, knowing what you know, John, is it possible that there is hundreds of billions of dollars in waste in the Social Security trust system that's going on? Is that possible?
Michelle, did I hear the explanation for this from you, or did I hear it from somebody else?
It wasn't me.
It's that what I heard yesterday was that the programmers, when they're putting in information, sometimes don't have at hand the birth dates of the people whose paperwork they're processing. That paperwork is pending, and so they'll just make up a date and put it in there as a placeholder. And that's what most of these are, because nobody's 100. Maybe there are one or two people that are 110 in America, but beyond that, these are just their placeholder dates. I don't know. I hope to God that if it's true that this is waste, they can address it immediately, then turn their full attention to the Pentagon, which should be at least cut in half.
It's like, maybe if this is true I'm sure there is Social Security fraud happening. Like, absolutely.
Yeah, there always is. There always has.
Of course there is. There's no system. There's no point in trying to make a system that's so mean and tight-fisted that it can't be rigged, right? Or that it can't be conned, right? There's no point to that. Then you just design an incredibly cruel society where there's no sort of trust and generosity. So there's definitely Social Security fraud going on. I don't think it's like pennies when it comes to government waste.
In the grand scheme of things, it is pennies, because we still, if we're not talking about modern monetary theory, we are still looking at the overarching problem with the Social Security Trust Fund, and that is it's capped. Mm-hmm. There is only a percentage of income that gets taxed to a point, and then it gets cut off. And what percentage is that? It's like $120,000 a year. The rich don't pay anything. Literally nothing into the Social Security Trust Fund. And I can still remember Mr. Jackass himself, Bill O'Reilly, complaining about the fact that, oh, you want to tax my money? You're not taxing anything. And there's such rich envy in this country. I really don't understand what that's all about. This idea, it's one thing to be inspired by people that have succeeded, that have created wealth, that have done things to make society better. It's another thing entirely to think that they're benevolent people, that they're perfect and that they do nothing wrong. That I don't understand that mindset. It's really confusing to me.
No.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Yeah.
So
especially someone like Musk, who, like, honestly, didn't he mostly make his money just by cleverly manipulating stock prices and California subsidies for electric cars?
Yes, and in fact,
cool. You can make a case maybe that SpaceX is doing stuff that's cool, but NASA would have been doing this probably if they hadn't decided to just privatize the whole process anyway, a couple decades ago.
Yeah.
So again, like, the Tesla of our time, as I know someone referred to, or the Thomas Edison of our time. Yeah.
Not even.
Yeah.
He's a douche canoe. He's a douche canoe that was given money, started with money, and buys other people's businesses. He's not that bright. He's not like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or someone who really created anything. He just buys things. That's not the same contribution.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
When we look back on this now, and we look back on when the change really needed to happen, I mean, obviously it needed to happen when Obama was elected back in 2008, but, I think most of us got really caught up in the whole Bernie Trump phenomenon that was 2015, 2016, watching the whole thing evolve in real time. Yeah. But when push came to shove, Trump was willing to fight in a way that Bernie was not willing to fight. And why do you believe to this day that Bernie decided to blink when he had the same opportunity that Trump had to basically tell the party establishment to stick it where the sun don't shine, and they would have basically had their hands tied? I still think the Democrats would have went down the road that they went down. The Republicans blinked, but I don't think the Democrats would have. I think they would have still risked what they risked, but it would have been exposed much, much quicker. Why do you think Bernie decided not to go for it at that time?
I think Bernie was a true believer in the DNC process. And, behind the scenes, I think that people that he liked or likes and respected, like Senator Warren, for example, or Senator Schumer, were telling him, Bernie, just let it go. Next time's your time. Be a team player. And, we used to hear all the time about fire in the belly. Does so-and-so have the fire in the belly necessary to run for president? I don't think Bernie really did. I think he wanted to get a platform out there. I think he believes he was successful in getting his ideas out there. And then that was good enough. He turned around and went home.
I mean, I think he never expected to be so popular. It just intention was to push Hillary to the left. The intention then is to push Biden to the left. Well, the second time, maybe there was a thought that he could actually win, certainly among his volunteers.
I gotta tell you. No, please continue.
No, I mean, I think that Bernie saying, I don't know, I don't have any special insight into this, but he has, I think you maybe could charitably say that some of his hesitation came from like a genuine fear of Donald Trump in the short term. I mean, the older I get, the more like you recognize how precious every individual life is. And I think he really, I mean, I can only think that he genuinely thought that Trump was a really frightening possibility and was going to make people's lives worse in the immediate term. And that, as much as we all hate the sort of slow, steady erosion of our well-being and our entertainment quality and our art quality, whatever, like the slow, steady erosion of the American dream, that a slow and steady process is at least like not quite as bad as suddenly thousands of people being thrown out of work, or you know what I mean? Like that living through this isn't that fun, right? And I think that maybe he preferred to forestall somebody like Trump.
Yeah, but he preferred Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was like the escalator ride. Trump is the free fall. I'm a Band-Aid kind of thing. Like, to me, just get it off. Just let's get it over with. And that's the thing. I mean, we were going in that direction either way.
I agree. And wouldn't you be pissed? I use this example all the time. I would be so angry at the Democratic National Committee if I won 60% in the West Virginia caucus and the Wyoming caucus, and I didn't win one single delegate. I beat Hillary Clinton 60-40, and Hillary Clinton wins every last delegate. So the fix is in. I would have burned the DNC down if I had been Bernie Sanders. And he didn't. He just took it. He just took it. I'll never understand that.
Yeah, and what he ended up doing was delaying the inevitable. And today, the Democratic Party is dead.
Right.
Like
that's
it's
it.
dead.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. And they only have themselves to blame.
Yeah, I mean,
don't
if you
think
saw,
they'll win another national race. I think they're done.
There has to be a huge change right now. If there was ever an opening in the last century for a viable left of center party, it's now. Because there are people like me. I don't call myself a Democrat. I haven't in many years. And I can't vote for these people. We have a right-wing party, and then we have a further right-wing party. And those are our two choices. And that's not good enough.
Yeah. And then you look at who is likely going to be one of the favorites to be the nominee for the Democratic Party in 2028, Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania.
Exactly.
He's coming out today basically saying, I'm going to figure out new ways to give tax cuts to corporations. And it's like, okay, well, what do you think is going to happen? People are going to eventually recognize that
he can't win.
Why? It's not a question of whether he wins or not. It's a question of whether they continue to getting themselves paid. You know, that's really what it comes down to. You know, you've already got one person that already blew the lid who is a total operative, but, you know, we would definitely have her on the podcast, Lindy Lee. You know, she's been a huge fundraiser for the Democrats in D.C., and she was somebody who was actually feeding information to Holly Otterbein over Politico about the fact that Biden was brain dead 2 years ago. And they were, you know, just saying like we're heading for a cliff. We're going to go over it. And because there's so many people that are just concerned about their own career within the Beltway, that they're willing to sink the country. That's basically what they're willing to do. And they really don't think it's that simple, but it kind of is, because most people don't pay attention.
That leads to the question then, is the alternative already out there? Is it the Green Party? Is it the Reform Party? Or does something new have to take place?
Well, it's funny. It's funny that you bring that up. On Saturday, Jen and I are going to be part of a big super stream led by Due Dissonance, which is going to cover Workers' Strike Back's rally in Seattle, led by Shama Sawant and Chris Hedges. This is going to be a big event, and I do believe that the fight that we are in for at this point has to come outside of the two-party system, because all the leverage is with labor. That's where the leverage is.
It's labor.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And you're also going to see a lot of people that support Trump, and Trump has a hell of a lot of the working class behind him. They are going to find themselves more interested in something like this, because as much as people may feel betrayed by Trump, there are tens of millions of people in this country who will never trust the Democratic Party ever again. So they have to have another path. And as far as we're concerned, this is the path. And that's what we're ultimately looking at. But one of the bigger reasons to obviously have you on the show this evening, of course, and everything is fortuitous and it happens for a reason. Your knowledge of foreign policy and why things happen the way that they do. Look, we caught a lot of shit. From day one, we saw exactly what the war in Ukraine was all about. We knew exactly that this is a money grab. There is trillions upon trillions of dollars in natural resources in Western Ukraine. We've pointed that out. The wars that are fought are all about natural resources. And yet there are people, the most disturbing thing, John, that I have seen maybe in all the years I've been following politics is when the Democratic House committee was standing on the House floor waving the Ukraine flag.
Yeah.
I never, ever, so I never see them wave the American flag. And even that, as jingoistic as it may seem, I could at least understand that. But you're going to wave the flag of why don't you just wave the Israel flag while you're at it?
They have that outside.
Yeah, they do that. Yeah,
their offices. They have that hanging all over the place.
That's
the Israel flag.
I use this term very loosely, but President Zelensky had something to say regarding whether or not we should end the war in Ukraine on 60 Minutes last night.
The risk that Russia will occupy Europe is 100%.
If the United States pulls out of NATO, Russia will occupy Europe.
Yes, so not all the Europe. They will begin from those countries, as I said, who are big our friends, but small countries who've been in the USSR and the Soviet Union. They will begin, and we'll see what will be the answer. But
So was that John Bolton or James Clapper who gave him that talking point, John? I'm just
saying. Exactly. See, this is the thing: is we so want to believe that we have independent thinkers making these foreign policies, and we don't. There are no independent thinkers out there. it was, I'll tell you a story that bothers me very much. I mentioned it yesterday on a podcast, but I happen to be Greek Orthodox, and the Orthodox Church has taken a strongly pro Zelensky position, which bothers me very much. And one of the reasons, or the primary reason that they did this, is because Hillary Clinton, when she was the Secretary of State, went to the Patriarch in Constantinople and said, we want you to recognize the Ukrainian Orthodox Church as independent of the Russian Orthodox Church. It's been a combined church for 1,000 years, a little bit more than 1,000 years. So he said, well, the Patriarch said, it's not really in our interest. She says, I'll give you $15 million. State Department will transfer $15 million to the Orthodox Church. The Patriarch says, I'll take the cash. She says, but it has to come from Ukraine. So we're going to transfer the money to the Ukrainian government, and then they'll put it in Ukrainian banks and send it to Constantinople. Well, by the time it got to the Patriarchate, it wasn't 15 million, it was 10 million. And when the Patriarch complained to Hillary Clinton, she said, I don't know anything about that. All I know is I sent you $15 million and you promised to recognize the Ukrainian Orthodox Church as independent, which he was forced to. But this is year after year after year. Ukraine is on the United Nations list of the most corrupt countries on the planet. Where did we think our money was going to go? Did we think that all of a sudden they were going to be honest and transparent about our money? Of course not. And the fix has been in for, what is it now, 3 years, I guess it is. So now we're supposed to be upset that that Zelensky doesn't want to settle this. He's never going to want to settle this. Everybody's getting rich. I wonder how much real estate he owns in London by now.
Isn't he worth like $100 million or something like that?
Wouldn't be at all surprised. Not at all.
We'll continue.
Europe will not answer because they don't have. They will begin to defend itself. Each country defend itself. And at this moment, so Russia will get all the successes with all the territories they will want. I don't know, they will want 30% of Europe, 50, I don't know, nobody knows. But they will have this possibility.
I just have to say, Russia has a population of like 144 million people. Just physically, how do you propose that Russia occupies Europe? It just sounded. It just is such
negative population growth. Negative population growth.
Doesn't make any. It just is so implausible. It's so bizarre that we have this idea of the enemy of Russia that is so outsized when it comes to its actual capabilities.
Yeah.
It's not technological, right? And not, like they have been able to hold their own against, Ukraine backed by NATO, right? They've done a pretty impressive job. But the idea of occupying and holding all of Europe, 30% of Europe, what are you talking about? This is
they have no idea.
Fantasy.
No.
Look, I
was just visiting with my 90-year-old aunt in Tampa, who I haven't seen in a while, and she loves Rachel Maddow. And this is and just know this is the only woman on the face of the earth that gets a pass for me for that. Okay, so that's that. But she truly believes, and I try, like some of it she was open to. She was actually pretty open to it, but she truly believes that Putin is a threat, that he wants to take over Ukraine. And I kept trying to say, they're not the threat. Like, it's so brainwashed. I'm like, I said to her, I'm like, you sound like a McCarthy person. You sound like it's Red Scare, but I don't understand. They have how many military bases in the world? Their economy is what, the size of Spain's? What are we worried about? We have our ships up their ass all the time. What if they had their aircraft carriers in the Gulf of America? Okay, would we be okay with that?
So true.
It's a bizarre. It is a weird, bizarre world that you step into.
Well, I think it's also a reflection of the specific type of demographic we're talking about here. The people that buy into the people that bought into the Russiagate narrative at the time. I mean, anyone with an objective eye saw without mentioning his name, that there was a member of the DNC who knew that Wasserman Schultz was facilitating a coup against Bernie Sanders behind the scenes on Hillary Clinton's behalf. He couldn't take it, much like Tulsi was not willing to accept it as the vice chair of the DNC. And he said, "To hell with this shit. I'm going to do something about it." And instead, what do they come up with? Oh, Russia did it. What the fuck does that even mean? And the fact that millions of people buy into it, that's the scarier part.
They
is that they don't
believe
even
it.
ask questions.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't want.
They're scared of Putin. I've
They are.
said this a million times. Why do we care? Why do we care what language our oligarchs speak? So
Yeah.
for me personally, I don't care if my oligarchs are Arabic or Chinese or Russian. It doesn't really matter. And so it's just hilarious that they think he's such a bad guy. He's extremely bright. So the fact that they think that he would do something completely irrational, it's like we're so used to that because our leaders are morons that maybe we project that onto other people. But he's a pretty bright guy. He's not. He knows what he can and cannot do. He's not Trump. He's not walking around saying ridiculous nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody takes him seriously. And I have a really strong feeling he ain't bluffing.
Yeah.
No.
No, I mean, I think, well, the outcome of the Ukraine war will be what, we had people predicting when it first started is,
Yes.
Russia is going to, they are going to
Yeah.
want to keep some of the land that they have annexed, right?
Yeah.
Ukraine will be left some, a rump state of some size, 80% of its current size, 75%, 85%, who knows what that negotiation will be. And somehow it'll be like spun as a victory. Or I see a little bit less of that now, but before it was, it was like the great foreign policy victory of Ukraine. I don't understand in what world that's been good for anybody except again for the contractors who've been sending weapons there.
Well, the bigger problem, of course, is the perception politically that people will look at this from. And what I always have found the most disturbing is that the people who are the loudest about whether or not a war should come to an end are people who would never pick up a weapon in a million years to defend this country. That has always been the greatest indictment on liberal America, as far as I'm concerned. Because they're the first ones to say go to war, and they're the last ones who would ever fight. And this is even more disturbing because I don't know what Zelensky thinks he's going to do at this point, because clearly Trump has made it clear that he wants to end this. I totally want my Nobel Prize.
Yeah, that's it. He does.
That's what it's about. And
Yeah.
so let me assure you something, Donnie. We're going to get to Israel in a minute. You're not getting anything if you allow this genocide to continue being facilitated. You're going to have to do two things. Mm-hmm. So this is what Zelensky had to say regarding ending this war.
President Trump said this week he did not say yes when he was asked if he sees Ukraine as an equal member in the peace process. He did say later that Ukraine would have a seat at the table. Have you been given any assurances that Ukraine will have an equal seat at the negotiating table?
So I will never accept any decisions between the United States and Russia about Ukraine. Never. And our people, never. And our adults and children and everybody. It can't be so. This is the war in Ukraine against us, and it's our human losses. And we are thankful for all the support, unity between USA, in USA, around Ukraine support, bipartisan unity, bipartisan support. We're thankful for all of this, but there is no any leader in the world who can really make a deal with Putin without us, about us.
It's at the point of lunacy at this point, as far as I'm concerned. And when you talk about what are we fighting for, you shouldn't have been fighting anything from the very beginning. And so, John, I would, for the audience, if you could put on your, insider hat, if you will. Boris Johnson gets sent over to Kyiv 2 weeks after the fighting begins. Mm-hmm. And what looks like something that was kind of a warning shot, if you will, from Putin's perspective, has turned into a 3-year, stalemate, if you will. It could be a hell of a lot worse. But what was the motive of the Prime Minister of the UK, who I have no doubt was just acting on behalf of the Biden administration at that time?
Totally agree. I think he was acting on behalf of the Biden administration. The motivation was to drag this war out as long as it possibly could be dragged out, because every day that there's fighting weakens Russia. At least that's the consensus here in Washington. You want the Russian economy to collapse. You want the Russian soldiers to be killed. You want the Russian population to rise up against Vladimir Putin because he's fighting a war that has no end. It weakens society. I've told a story 1,000 times that when I was with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I went to Afghanistan to study the heroin poppy crop. And, Afghanistan was producing 93% of the world's heroin at the time. And I came back to write the paper, and I got a call from DEA. They asked if they could see me. So I went out to see them, and they said, look, nobody wants this heroin cultivation to stop because all that heroin goes to Russia and Iran, and we want their societies to be weakened. Well, it's exactly the same thing with the Ukraine war. Our policy is that we want Russia to be weakened. We want their society to be destroyed. And so we can help to affect that by dragging out this war as long as humanly possible. That's the Democratic Party's position on this. They were thrown by Donald Trump's, we're gonna end this war. And Zelensky is just plain wrong when he says that if there's not a seat at the table for Ukraine, that the war can't end. That's bullshit. The war's going to end if he's told the war's going to end. Whether he and the rest of NATO like it or not the rest of NATO, whether he and NATO like it or not. If the money and weapons come that are coming from the United States end, that's it. It's over.
That's it.
Yeah, and it's only a matter of time because I think that there's, look, like you said, this is an endless war economy. It doesn't actually conclude. It's just if it does conclude in Ukraine, much like Afghanistan, they're just going to move on to another spot, or they're going to shuffle more pieces on the chessboard. That's really all this is about.
Yeah. Then you start another buildup against the Chinese, or you look at Gaza again and start ramping up bombings and drone strikes and whatever you wanted, or maybe you look to bomb Iran. There's always going to be some enemy that we have to focus on. Always.
So why is the U.S. population so apoplectic about all of this? Why do they just give in and not where is the I'm not going to take this anymore disposition that should be overwhelming the population at this point, as far as
it should be. People should be in the streets, and they would have been in the 60s and the 1970s. They'd have been in the streets, but I think that people have pretty much drunk the Kool-Aid. I think that they really believe in this, USA nonsense. Just look at at any sporting event with the flyovers and the giant flags on the field and people standing up with their hands on their hearts and crying. When students come here to study for their senior year of high school or whatever, foreign exchange students, they're shocked into speechlessness when they see chants of USA, USA, USA at sporting events, or they see the giant flag at every car dealership, or they've never experienced anything like that. And it's because we have propagandized ourselves to the point where we now believe our own propaganda.
I think
Well,
also
we think we're great.
Yeah.
But I think also, to give Americans a little bit of credit, right? Over the last decades, your money doesn't go as far as it used to. You know what I mean? We're one of the only countries also where you don't get any maternity leave, for example, right? Like there's no mandated amount of time off that people get. You have to bust your ass to be able to afford your rent. I don't know the percentage of Americans off the top of my head who have a passport, but it's, smaller than we all would guess, I think. And so you have a population where everybody's working hard all the time. Nobody's got time to go anywhere. We have the world's we're the sort of center of global entertainment output, like us in Bollywood, probably. China's, their movie making apparatus is up and running. But like, we live on this isolated continent, and if you want to get off it, and if you want to get out from under this propaganda that starts in our, shitty public education systems, you have to really try. And like, it's not necessarily a normal thing to want to do, it took me like, maybe I should be embarrassed about this, but it took me like being overseas for a decade to like really shake it off, right? I didn't go over there with any intention of like changing my mind about my country. It just happened. And I think it, you know, it takes a certain personality and a certain amount of drive to be curious enough to look for something else, and to be smart enough to recognize it when you see it, and then to be willing to be alienated from your society when you do. And most people don't want to do that. And it's not, it doesn't make them bad. They're perfectly like normal. It's like this would happen in any population that is as propagandized as ours, you know? And I think that like the state of our economy, and the sort of state of our culture and entertainment systems facilitate this, absolutely, even when they aren't sort of directly promoting it.
We've saved the best for last. And I think that as much as Ukraine is a bane on our existence, that's child's play compared to the state of Israel and what they have been able to get away with for many, many, many years. I'm sure you have some degree of insider knowledge that you can or maybe can't share regarding JFK's assassination. But, you know, one of the things that we had covered kind of extensively recently, including a book by a gentleman by the name of Ken McCarthy, is the idea that JFK may have very well sealed his fate because he went out of his way to try to register the original incarnation of AIPAC as a foreign agent. And that was a non-starter because all of the money, the millions, this is in the 1960s, mind you, the millions upon millions of dollars that was being facilitated into AIPAC on behalf of the Israel lobbying firm was all being done by the Zionist movement here in the United States. And so trying to prevent the likes of, I mean, people don't realize what a psychopathic Zionist Bill Ackman is, and he's a billionaire. And it doesn't take a lot to just move, what, $20, $30 million of his multi-billion-dollar portfolio to say, bing, bang, boom, we're getting, this person out of Congress, putting this person in. I mean, they're playing this role of God in many ways. And it comes full circle today because I don't give a rat's ass about these gossip stories regarding the likes of Ashley St. Clair, who is a MAGA, content creator, I guess you would call her, who apparently was having an affair with Elon Musk. But there is a very unique caveat to this story that has been completely glossed over, which should not surprise anybody. Colin, if you could cue up that tweet that I sent over regarding the person who is handling the PR for Ashley St. Clair and her connection directly to the Israel lobby, which again is just something that doesn't ever get talked about. So evidently, WikiLeaks exposes the mother of Elon Musk's new child, Ashley St. Clair, as being managed by PR strategist Brian Gillikich, who previously received almost $600,000 from an Israeli security firm. There's always a connection, and it runs so incredibly deep. So when you think about why Elon, not too long ago, didn't have the most favorable opinion about Israel and more or less acknowledged that a genocide was going on. And then the next thing you know, he's on a plane over to Jerusalem to meet with Netanyahu, and he goes to the wall, and all of a sudden he has a complete epiphany about, it's really anti-Semitism that's causing this entire problem. How deep does this problem go? Like, how embedded into our culture is the Israel lobby? Because it seems like they are the invisible hand that controls our society. At least that's where I see it.
In my first week, during my first week on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee staff, AIPAC lobbyists came to the office and, with giant phony smiles on their faces and invited literally everybody on the staff to go to Israel. And I said, oh, no, thanks. Why not? I said, no, thank you. I'm not interested. Oh, have you ever been to Israel? I said, no, I had never been to Israel at that point, but I'd get there one of these days, but it was going to be on my own dime. I don't want you guys to pay for a trip to Israel. Most of the staff went. And of course, they're treated to dinner at the best restaurants and the finest Israeli wines, and they're taken to all the most beautiful neighborhoods, and they come back and they say, my God, what an incredible first world country, and their economy is so strong, and they have such a vibrant technology sector, and the hotels are beautiful, and blah, 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 because they don't get to see what Israel really is like. They don't get to see the gigantic open-air prisons that most Palestinians are forced to live in generation after generation after generation. There's this fake world that's presented to them, and for the most part, these guys are young and inexperienced, and they come back, just thinking Israel is the greatest thing on earth. I was in the CIA for 15 years. I know what the Israelis are like. They're not our friends. Listen, on my very first day at the CIA, I've said this 1,000 times. We got a briefing by the director of security. For the whole CIA, came to talk about counterintelligence. And he said that most embassies in Washington have what are called declared officers. That is, a member of that country's intelligence service who is declared to the CIA, where they say, this is so-and-so, he's from our intelligence service, and he's going to be working with your people. The Israelis had 2 declared officers, one from Mossad and one from Shin Bet, working at the Israeli embassy. But the FBI had found 189 undeclared Israeli intelligence officers working all across America to steal our defense secrets. That was 35 years ago. How many are there today? If you have Israelis that are trying to burrow their way into every defense contractor in America, right? Mm-hmm. In addition to the CIA, the FBI, NSA, the Pentagon. How many Israeli spies are we talking about? It's not a secret that the CIA lists Israel as critical threat for counterintelligence. You know what the other countries are that are critical threat for counterintelligence? China, North Korea, Cuba, and Israel. It's like, come on. How in the world did we convince ourselves that these people are friends?
Yeah.
Yeah. Our friends, the Israelis.
It's funny how when it's Israel, it's not interference. You know what I mean? I find there's such a double standard, right? Like you can have Congressman Brian Mast showing up to Congress in an Israeli, army uniform.
Should have been shot.
The Biden administration's negotiator, Amos Hochstein.
Yeah.
Born in Israel, served in the IDF. It's just like all of these things would be, people would have some questions and what, you know what I mean? Like you might be not allowed in certain positions or whatever. You're sort of, your loyalties might be questioned if you are from any other country, or if you show up in the uniform of another country's army to our Congress. But when it's Israel, it somehow doesn't count. It's never actually interference. In fact, it's interference if you try to maybe just leave open your right to criticize Israel or call for a boycott or whatever else. It's a very strange double standard. I mean, I feel like for that reason, I don't think Israel needs to honeypot Elon Musk, right? I think they're fine. They've got who they need to get. I think Musk just wanted to get on the bandwagon.
Maybe they do.
I sort of tend to agree. This is something that I've seen Larry Wilkerson talk about, this Mearsheimer thought that somehow Israel is the boss. And it's not, because they're just our arm there. The reality is, and anyone who has kids know this, the person with the money is the person in charge. And at the end of the day, that's who allows this to happen. And that's us. So I just think that they're an arm of us. I don't think they're really independent of us. I think that that's a facade.
Well, Netanyahu was born and raised in Philadelphia. So yeah, he's he's pretty comfortable here. Yes.
Yeah.
How do you see if
he doesn't look like he's from the Levant? I'll tell you that. He doesn't look like he's from the Levant. And I think him and his other white friends should leave.
Yeah.
Well, if you're looking at this from the perspective of intelligence and you're looking at the general population, because I do think that people are getting restless with Israel. I think that is a real problem. I just heard, you talk about, and Michelle, you pointed this out earlier about the decline of all the things that have declined. We haven't even addressed healthcare, but healthcare was never really good to begin with. The decline of public education in this country and how far it has sunk and how much it became a complete bureaucratic machine in which it's more important to facilitate this elitist jobs program than it is to actually teach people how to survive and thrive in the world. Tel Aviv University, this was discovered in Doge. Tel Aviv University gets $250 million in tuition from the United States every single year. I mean, at some point, whatever it's going to take to dismantle the Israeli state and the control and the stranglehold that it has over our country, I mean, at this point, I don't care what it's going to take. But as Jen, you've pointed out many a times, we have to figure this out sooner rather than later, because anti-Semitism is going to reach a fever pitch that hasn't been seen in a very long time if we don't. And unfortunately, there's too many members of the Jewish community, not you withstanding, that keep their mouth shut about this, because most of them do not agree with this shit, but they're also concerned about, like you said before, regarding people's position in society. That actually bothers them. They think about that before they think about doing the right thing.
Have I lost? How many friends have I lost? Like, what is this? What is this cost? Right?
Wow.
Not many people are willing to do this.
Wow.
You know, that's the truth. And when you're a self-loathing Jew that lives in South Florida, no one likes you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Muslims like me. The Muslims like me.
I do, like, it has, we experienced this during Russiagate a lot, John. Like, it does feel as though, again, I don't like to sort of harken back to some, like, a good old days point or whatever, but it does seem like people are really allowing political differences to come between personal relationships in a way that's kind of bizarre. Like, you know, you or I as personally am destroying American democracy or something if we have a different opinion on something. And that's, you know, it's sad. I mean, there are some things that are values and there are other things that are opinions, right? And I feel like you ought to be able to, I don't know, man. I think there's very little that you should actually trash a friendship or a family relationship.
Well, what's interesting is obviously I think it works better in the other direction. So from my perspective, genocide's a line for me that I am just not going to be okay with. And I am not going to be okay with anybody in my life that's okay with it, period. And I don't care who it is because it just isn't okay. But yet it's ironic that those people are annoyed at me. When in fact, and that's fine. And I don't care because at the end of the day, I don't want to have anything to do with them. But what we need to be worried about in South Florida is, you want to talk about an infestation of Israelis. We have a serious problem. And these people, these are genocidal people. And we just let them in willy-nilly. And then we point fingers at the Haitians like they're a problem in some way. Meanwhile, I sit in Pilates class with genocidal lunatics that are the most entitled people that have ever walked the fucking planet. So it's like, those are the problem. Have you ever met more entitled people than Israelis in your I have never met more entitled people in my entire life than Israelis.
And this also comes full circle because this is a class war. Because if you notice the people that are the most loud and adamant about the support for the Israel state, the Jewish state, if you will, these are affluent people. These are not middle-class people. These are not even upper middle-class people. These are people that sit on the highest levels of the rungs of society, and they are the ones who scream the loudest about anti-Semitism, which to me is always a crutch. It's always an excuse to defend their actions, which they know are heinous, and it's happening in real time. I just don't know how people think they're going to get away with it. Now, Trump will have his defenders, no question about it. But there are people that have a serious libertarian bend in the MAGA movement who are dead set against this shit. They don't want any part of it. They know it's a complete waste. Thomas Massie, in my opinion, is the best Congress member that we have right now. To, you know, Rashida Tlaib, I would also put up there. But there's not many of them. But Massie really stands above the rest because he's proven time and again that he's willing to not only buck the party, he's willing to buck Trump. And by doing that, he's showing that this idea that you can't stand up for yourself, that you can't actually have a footing that people will support, bullshit. Of course they will. But there's a lot of people, AOC probably being the most responsible out of anyone. Alex has made it way too clear for way too long that it is about her career. Her career is very important to her. She wants to sit on these committees because she wants to ascend within the party ranks. She sees what Elise Stefanik was able to do, and Elise Stefanik doesn't have half the chops that Alex has politically. And yet she was able to get herself into a very, substantially large position, to say the least.
It's a useless, feckless position of somebody who sits there to put their hand up, and that's all they friggin' do. So I don't think that's a good position. I think it's a loser job, and I think she's actually, you know what? She's actually perfect for that job. Let that psycho sit in that job.
We actually have a wonderful person in the chat here, Rafi, who I don't even recognize. And Colin, can you please cue up that clip that I sent you from Instagram? We have to play this. You guys have to discuss the incident in Miami that just happened over the weekend where 3 Israelis were involved in a shooting. The shooter thought that the Israelis were Palestinians, the 2 Israelis who were shot by an Arab.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable.
That's a shame.
A Jewish man in Miami has been arrested and charged with 2 counts of attempted murder after opening fire on a car he believed contained 2 Palestinians. Even the caucasity is just.
So he's not being Israeli, right? Yeah.
So Mordecai.
But do you know why that
Oh
is
my
so
God.
perfect? You know why this is perfect? Because the truth is, and this is what will never cease to amaze me, that these Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews, do not grasp this concept. They are us. Those are us. Those are our heritage. That's our people, the original Hebrews. Those are the Palestinians. They cannot wrap their heads around it. But at the bottom line is they're all Semitics. So when you say anti-Semite, are you saying anti-Palestinian? No. And anti-Semitic is some Euro thing that came up about the Jews. Arabic, Arab peoples never had that. That's not a thing. That's just not a thing, because the Jews were Arabs too. They're all Semites. And this moron clearly can't tell the difference. This is perfect, actually. Please continue.
Go on.
No, go for it, Michelle.
Oh, I'm just reading that. So this young Jewish man, he's driving around in his truck. He sees 2 people, assumes they're Palestinian, tries to kill them. They turn out to be Jews, but then after the incident, one of them posts a message on social media that says "Death to Arabs." Like, you can't. It's just such a. It's just so mind-boggling. Like, you didn't even. You could probably ask these guys. Who knows what they say? But they probably say, you know what? I don't even mind. He was trying to do something that I wanted to do as well. Anyone can make a mistake. Next time, inshallah, they'll be Palestinians. It's like horrible.
Well, they're going to give him a pass because the thought was good. It was the thought that counted, right? So he had good goals. He was right. It's the thought. So we're going to let him have a pass on that. He was an accident.
Yeah. I mean, I trust that the Miami police is not going to feel the same way. But like, it does reveal just an insane.
I don't know, but I don't trust anything about Miami. So I wouldn't trust anything about Miami. That is the most banana republic place. You can't even. There's no words.
He fired 17 times.
This is great.
17. An extended magazine on a 9mm holds 17. He emptied the entire.
He unloaded the clip. He unloaded the clip. But you want to talk about privilege, but this is dangerous privilege. The only reason why Brofman unloaded the clip is, I mean, I don't want to make any assumptions here, but let's just say he may be connected to the Mossad. He may very well know that he's bulletproof. Lethal Weapon 2 was a great movie back in the day.
That's what you go to?
I go to that.
Thought, like, that's what you like. Seriously, I'm just curious.
The reason I go to Lethal Weapon 2 and I use that as a reference point is because the story that was told, which was before the fall of apartheid in South Africa, was this idea that whether it was because of the drug trafficking or because of their standing within society at the time, because of the rich minerals that are in South Africa, the diplomats, if you will, that represented South Africa basically said, we're untouchable. You can't do anything to us. In fact, we're not only going to traffic in drugs, but we will kill people that get in our way. And there is nothing you could do about it. He's got immunity, diplomatic immunity, can't be touched. Well, this guy unloads a clip because he's Israeli or he's part of the Mossad in some connection and basically says, well, they can't do anything to me. I'm untouchable. That's why we have to deal with.
It's funny that you think it was that. It's funny that you think it was this thought of entitlement. I was just thinking it's complete incompetence. I was actually thinking that it was someone who didn't know what the hell he was doing. And he looks like someone who wouldn't know what the hell he was doing. And he probably, that's what I would go to incompetence first.
I'm with you, Jen.
Yeah. Well, we do have this this last clip that I sent you, Colin. I just want to confirm that this is this legislation that they're trying to pull up now. This is, let me confirm. I know I sent this over to you. I just want to make sure okay. So this was a clip that was initially put up by Max Blumenthal, who I'm sure you guys know, does really great work. And so evidently this is another connection to the Israel nonsense regarding why did we actually go to the lengths to block TikTok? Why was this done? Well, Senator Mark Warner, who is the richest member of the Senate on the Democratic side, Rick Scott on the Republican side, he had some very interesting things to say regarding this legislation today.
How did that legislation pass so quickly? If this is correct and there's not a lot of people that understand, somebody understood something.
I want to see if you're going to tell the real story.
Okay, the real. Well, first of all, let the record
We're talking
reflect.
about TikTok legislation.
I left.
There's no AI legislation.
Senator, I left to produce more human beings, and they cost money. They're not making me money. And if everyone had followed Frank and my Irish Catholic lead and repopulated the earth, we would have already won this Cold War competition. How did it pass so quickly? I know we're running out of time. One, we stole the senator's work, and he did a lot of the, sincerely, a lot of the yeoman's work in drafting an initial bill. We were able to sort of learn from that experience. We refined the approach. We worked with him. We worked with the executive branch. So we had a bipartisan consensus. We had the executive branch, but the bill was still dead until October 7th. And people started to see a bunch of anti-Semitic content on the platform. And our bill had legs again. And then there was a huge miscalculation by TikTok. When it became apparent that we were going to pass it out of committee, they forced sort of a pop-up on the app that allowed people to call their members of Congress. And kids were calling into their members of Congress during school hours threatening to commit suicide if TikTok went away. And for those of us who are concerned about the use of this platform for propaganda purposes or brainwashing, it sort of proved the point in the moment, and suddenly the bill passed. So it was the threat of espionage, the threat of propaganda, the good work of Senator Warner, and a few other players that all conspired.
And he got it out of a committee that is the most diverse in the House, from left to right, 50-0 after a classified. That was he did a, it was. People would not have bet on, but he and his Democratic colleagues did some great.
But to your point about democracy, I mean, that was a 3-year endeavor and it failed, 100 times, and we just had to keep working it and working it.
So let me do this. We are out of time. We're getting the axe.
You're going to be out of time completely if you're not careful, which, like I said, at this point, I'm more convinced than ever that they're just kind of sealing their fate. They're admitting that they're looking for excuses to employ censorship on free speech. They can't, you can't defend this anymore. There is no defense of it. There is this idea that you can censor your way to prosperity. We saw what they tried to do on the Democratic side. The Republicans will do the same thing. It's all about protecting money and power. But I think that a lot of people are getting hip to this, to what's going on now. And I think more and more people, John and Michelle, they're willing to embrace it now, maybe in a way that they didn't before. You can tell that Warner is full of shit when he's talking. There's nothing genuine about what he's saying, nor is there anything genuine about these bureaucrats. Everything is just career advancement, career maintenance, etc. There is no advancement of American society, which is crumbling every single day, to the point where people really have to start questioning whether it's time to start thinking like a revolutionary.
It is incredible that they'll just openly say, I mean, I think, it was Mitt Romney who alluded to this a couple months back when Warner's confirming it. They'll just openly say it's because there was too much pro-Palestinian content on TikTok. The fact that he used the term brainwashing, the two people on that stage said, oh yeah, we have to get rid of TikTok because it's brainwashing our children. It's like the same. I agree. Like the hyperbole will get so intense that it does fall apart, right? The idea, and if like your kids can be brainwashed by TikTok, but for some reason they're not going to be brainwashed by Facebook or Instagram or like Snapchat or whatever. It's just so patently false, John.
I agree with everything that all of you have said. It's like longtime U.S. support for the two-state solution, or my own choice, the three-state solution. We no longer support a two-state solution. Why? Because Benjamin Netanyahu told us not to. His position is that there can't be a two-state solution because it'll, lead to terrorism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There is a one-state solution right now, and we see how that's working out. It's not. But American politicians now are saying, nope, two states, impossible. We've tried it. We couldn't get it. We have to go with what the Israelis want. The Israelis want one state. And that's just not acceptable.
The best part about going through this odyssey with Jen over the past few years, trying to do what we could to get Wasserman Schultz out of power. The thing that I found so rewarding was seeing just what an amazing community the Muslims really are, how considerate they are to one another, how they are infinitely more successful than people think or even know. But there is a changing of the guard in their community. They are starting to get more politically active in a way that they never were before.
That's exactly right. And if I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's exactly right, because the earlier generation of Muslims that came to this country struggled with what their religion wanted them to do about voting. And there was this consensus in the community starting in the 1950s that Muslims should not participate in the political process here. And that's changed since September 11th. And now they're far more active. They're very well informed, well-read, activist. You're exactly right. Things are changing.
What do you see? And before you guys go, guys, if you aren't, and the link is in the description, but please make sure that you do go over and subscribe to the Deprogram Show with John and Michelle. And there is also another gentleman, Ted Rawl. This is the type of stuff. It may not be sexy, but damn it if it isn't important. This is the type of these are the topics that we need to be discussing on a regular basis, because our country is in immense peril right now. And I don't think people are truly recognizing how bad it really is and how much worse it's going to get. It's not a question of if it will, it's going to get worse. Yeah. What is your recommendation in terms of how things are going to spiral and what we should be looking to do in order to not necessarily avoid it, but how we're going to come through on the other side when things really start to get out of control?
Well, I'm going to start by talking about a friend of mine, Brian Becker, whom Michelle is also friendly with. Brian Becker is a well-known activist with the Answer Coalition. She's the founder of the Answer Coalition. And if there's one thing that Brian is exceptionally great at doing, it is organizing protests. Well, right after the hostilities began in Gaza, he organized a protest in Washington. And he went to the Department of the Interior to fill out the forms. He's always there when they open the doors at 7 o'clock in the morning to fill out the forms. And he told them that he expected this to be a big demonstration. He was predicting between 15,000 and 30,000 people. That's a big demonstration. 300,000 people showed up. And the crowd stretched from the White House to the Capitol building. It was global news. We know that Americans are concerned. We know that Americans are interested. And so it's up to us to keep having these conversations and keep helping to educate the people who we have access to. Because look what we're up against. We're up against AIPAC and a biased Congress and a biased media. So we have that much more work to do to keep up the fight. But that's really what we have to do.
And I do think also, related to your point, John, I mean, sort of enforcing propaganda and enforcing a certain mindset is really effective when the process of demonizing people who don't think that way is effective, right? I mean, we saw that exercised in Russiagate. We see this sort of blatant attempt to make sure that Americans don't get any, unseemly information about Israel and the genocide in Gaza right now through TikTok. But I think, again, like, there is safety in numbers, right? The more you realize that you're not going to be sort of cast out of polite society if you think what is going on in Gaza is unacceptable, think signing a loyalty oath to Israel before you accept a state, work contract is unacceptable. I think, having Ukrainians die in the hundreds of thousands to, fulfill our goal of bleeding Russia slowly is unacceptable. I think that there is virtue in just letting people know that you're not going to ostracize them, right? Like the crowd will begin to snowball, right? And then, of course, it's not enough to just think the right way. You know what I mean? Then, of course, you do have to take some action, right? There has to be something beyond going to a protest or beyond, posting or whatever. But first, to just sort of try to create a society where you, where you can call a spade and not be sort of ostracized for it is part of step one.
Last thing before you go, thoughts on Tulsi and what you would expect from her, if anything positive. I don't think she's completely devoid of positivity. She's totally politically ambitious, and take that for what it's worth. What do you see happening with her in charge of national intelligence?
I like Tulsi very much, and I've written about her. But the problem that Tulsi's going to run into is that she's in charge of very, very little as the director of national intelligence. Essentially, she's only in charge of the intelligence community budget and the daily publication of the president's daily brief. That's not much. The real power is still with the CIA director and the national security advisor. With that said, at least we have someone in that position who can give shit to John Ratcliffe if he strays too much toward the neocons, or at least try to keep that budget in line, maybe cut it, which would be a wonderful thing. We could have done much, much worse than Tulsi Gabbard. I'm cautiously optimistic about her. I will say I was worried about her flip-flop on Section 702. Mm-hmm. We'll have to wait and see what the reauthorization bill looks like. But I hope that was just a sop to the neocons and the neoliberals to get herself approved. We'll see.
Yeah.
Same would apply for herself as well as RFK when it comes to the state of Israel, which of course is our biggest fight on the international side. Michelle, John, thank you so much for coming on this evening.
I'm so sorry I've been spotty. I'm so sorry I've been spotty. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm in a cabin with no plumbing, Bacon's in Georgia. I was petting a deer.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it's really pretty, but there's no good I can't get Wi-Fi. I'm a hot mess.
Enjoy not having internet.
That's right.
John Kiriakou, Michelle Whitty.
Thanks for the invitation.
Anytime.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Great conversation.
This is a nightmare. I'm having, although keep this in mind, every time that I went out, Rachel had the live stream playing, so I was following the whole time. So I didn't miss anything. I just could not get back in.
See, your presence was there, and that's what really matters,
Well,
I felt your spirit.
I didn't lose the conversation. That's what I'm saying. Like, I was following the whole time. She was sitting next to me with her phone on, watching. And just in case you were wondering, she got an ad, and I've been curious what our ads are now that campaign season is over. Do you know what it was? It was Arby's.
Well, I'm getting hungry, so we'll do one more segment before we go. Chip, thank you so much for the $2.
You should see what Rachel set up here for me. I got like a cheese platter and some carrots and some dip. She's like the best wife ever.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
Chip, again with the $2. Trump does what he says. Why are we surprised? No, Trump does. I totally do what I say. Tortuga, thank you so much for the $4 super sticker. Really appreciate it. Chip, with the $10, there are too many holes in the dike. The country is not preparing for when the dam bursts. I could not agree more. Chris Hedges and Richard Wolff are sounding the alarm. So are we. We're missing the forest through the trees. Yes.
And that's the key thing right there. And this is what I think about when I talk to people, even like I was saying before about my aunt, is that every single one of these people is staring straight at a tree. They're staring at the tree and they cannot pull back and see the big picture. That's exactly what it is. And that is what is keeping us, I think, from progressing. But of course, we know our goal is to red pill as many people as possible.
That's our job. We're doing it 100 live viewers at a time. We're getting there. Chip, with the $2, when people like Elon screw up, they screw up big. Yeah. Well,
good.
Maybe he's going to, listen, he's going to turn into a total fucking simp, not just for Israel, but for Trump as well, because so much of his wealth is predicated on like an idea. It's not real. It's not tangible. It's not Warren Buffett money. It's not even, dare I say, Bill Gates money.
No, but you know what? This is something I was thinking about. I would love to, I think I'm going to put this out as an offer to people who own Cybertrucks. So I have this business idea. What I want to do is I want to craft sandwich boards, that people wear. And it'll say in big bold letters, I am a douche canoe. And I'll sell them for a lot less than the Cybertruck. And I think, honestly, it's like, if you're going to announce to the world that that's who you are, I could give it to you so much cheaper. And in fact, for some people, I'll actually do it for free. And I just think that's a savings, because how much is a Cybertruck? I'm telling you, I could announce your douche canoe-ness for a lot cheaper.
The DNC is responsible for Trump's election twice. Yes, they are. But that was intentional. They were, remember, and you said it, Jen, they would rather lose to Trump than win with Bernie. And we've been saying this for years.
Absolutely.
For years.
Absolutely. They prefer him. It's not even close. And that's the fact. This is a class war. We say it all the time. This is a capital problem. And the same capital that owns the Democrats owns the Republicans. They are all the same. And so it's all just levels of corporatism. So of course they're going to prefer the more capitalistic corporate person over the person that is more populist. And that would apply whether it was a left or a right, or a blue or a red. They're always going to pick the corporatist over the non-corporatist. It doesn't matter what the party is to them, because they all make their money from the same sources.
Could you imagine if Bernie was president and Nina Turner was in charge of HUD, and we actually dealt with the housing crisis in this country?
That's why it would never get to that. And when we were talking before about, that this obviously isn't ideal. No, it isn't ideal. But for all the morons out there that were supporting Hillary Clinton, we offered you the option. We offered you the better alternative. See, that was the time to take the better alternative. So now everything that we're in is we're in the Biff timeline.
Oh, listen, I told you, I still cannot wait until they try to sell Buttigieg. Like they're really going to try. That's going to be great. Please do it.
He will not win. My take, I don't think he'll win another seat of anything. I don't think Kamala will win another seat of anything. I don't think the Democrats will get another national election. I think their numbers are dwindling and dwindling and dwindling to the point where they couldn't, and that they don't present anything enough to get middle of the roads or independents. They're not presenting.
Look at Josh Shapiro. You got Fetterman, who basically is it's not even a question of being a Republican. It's just a question of just being a complete neocon and just being completely out of sight, out of mind. And then you got Shapiro, who would have an opening to distinguish himself from Fetterman. And his attitude is, no, I'm going to be just as bad, if not worse. That's what I'm going to do. That's what happens.
Both of them are horrible. Now, I actually think this is the thing, though, as disgusting as Fetterman is, and I find him to be a goon, but he would have a better chance on a national scale than Shapiro would, even though, I find them both disgusting for similar and yet different reasons, but there is no universe wherein a man named Josh Shapiro is being the president of this country following where the Democrats are right now. Not happening. It's just not happening. And he can try that all he wants.
He could, but they don't live in reality. They don't realize how much this country is done with the Zionist state. We're done.
Well, the Zionist state is going to expand. And it's going to keep growing. And until we fall, now when American empire falls, and it's coming, then the Zionist state will go with us, because that is
would
our
be the
arm.
scariest thing. You know, they talk about expansion and they talk about Russia expanding. They will never say a fucking word about Israel expanding. And the danger, which has always been proven throughout history, is that when you fuck around with your borders and try to expand, you have your eyes focused on one place, and then you have your enemy that literally stabs you in the back, and you didn't even see it coming. Because that's what's going to
happen is whether it's BRICS or some sort of contingency in that way, when they're done with American empire, and it isn't going to be militarily, because in the reality, nobody can beat us in that way. That's not going to happen. It's not going to be that. But when BRICS, which now represents more than half the population of the globe, their GDP is higher than the G7. We are not in a position that we can see empire as something that's going to last forever. It's not. No, none of them do. So when we go down, Israel will go right along. They'll go right along with us. When American empire is no longer king shit of fuck mountain, then the rest of the world is going to have had their way with the state of Israel, and they're going to turn it proper into Palestine.
Well, much like our circumstance over in Ukraine, Kiev killed 15 to 18,000 Russian-speaking Donbass residents. What did they think Russia was going to do about it? Thank you, Chip.
Here's the problem. This is the biggest problem. Most people never hear that story. Most people in this country truly believe that Putin woke up one day and decided he was going to invade Ukraine to conquer Ukraine and then move on to the rest of Europe. That is I am telling you that you're rolling your eyes because it's ridiculous. So I understand that. But this is what these people think. And they truly think that Putin is like the evil of all evils. Not our country, which actually is the evil of all evils on the globe right now. You can ask any country in the world what the biggest threat to their peace and happiness and well-being is, and they will say the United States. They don't say Russia. Nobody in the rest of the world is scared about imperialist Russia. Does Russia have their warships all up everybody's ass? Does Russia have like 1,000 bases around the world? I don't think so. Like, this is so absurd to me.
Edward Bernays invented PR in 1917. It works. You're right. And then you saw what happened. And then you saw, of course, what happened with the great Gatsby himself. War propaganda is a real thing. And whether it was William Randolph Hearst or anybody in the modern day, people are easily manipulated. And what was the saying that Mark Twain had? Your connection's on the fritz.
He's scared, and that's the problem. I know. I'm trying. Can you hear me?
Yalabite with the $4.99. I sometimes think Michael Cohen is a closeted, newly converted anti-Zionist Jew, and most Jews are anti-Zionist. Either some are brainwashed. Look, we'll welcome Michael Cohen. Use the platform that you can, how you can. Everyone except for Deborah Messing is allowed to see the light. Well, just about everybody. There's a few exceptions that I will not accept. Deborah Messing can't be accepted. She fucked with Susan Sarandon for the last time. That was the end of her. Remember when she was with Noah Tishby in Tel Aviv, and she's like, "You're home." I'm home.
Oh my God. That was so disgusting. You know, all of those people, I do think, but notice it's no real stars. It's only like grade B and grade C and grade D actors. It's nobody of any real substance. And I so hope that new superhero movie, is there something coming out with that Sabra, whatever that is? Yeah. That shit needs to be burned to the ground.
Oh, it's going to sink them. I hope they make negative money. Well, actually, they will. I'm talking about like it could severely hurt the studio, which it should do.
Good. Good.
Rafi with the $4.99. Jen, Peter, absolutely love your show, of course. Michelle and John recently discovered and subscribed to the Deprogram Show. Awesome. You're all awesome, and we appreciate you being here.
So much.
Yalabite with the $1.99. Biofuels are an answer to defeat Elon. Listen, there's a lot of answers to defeating Elon, and one of them, despite what Jen has to say about it, is nuclear power. You want to fuck over Elon Musk? Get on board with nuclear power.
Yes, but then you fuck over the rest of us.
That is not true.
I'm not going to look. I'm not delusional. I don't think it's dangerous in the way like I think it's Chernobyl. Okay. I understand the reality of how it works. We've discussed it on the show. I understand it. I've read about it. I get it. I know that it's a better option in a lot of ways. And yet, that's not the solution that I am in favor of. That's what I'm saying. That's like, you know what that is? That's the equivalent of when someone puts a knife in your back and then someone pulls it out 3 inches. It doesn't solve the problem.
Phil, thank you so much for gifting the One Generational Change membership. It really means a lot. And last but certainly not least, Willie, thanks for checking in. The DNC would give the 2028 nomination to Liz Cheney before they would even give it to AOC, no matter how much she sold out. We would agree.
Absolutely.
And if you are so inclined and you do not want to give your money to Google, which owns YouTube, we always recommend that if you would be so considerate to contribute to our small but mighty channel that just crossed 20,000 subscribers, please get over to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. We are transforming politics into service. That is what we do. We are, if you thought that John Kiriakou and Michelle Whitty was a good appetizer, our entree for Thursday is Ben Cohen of Ben & Jerry's. We have been very much looking forward to this one for a long time. We'll have lots to talk about, including...
I think we should change our slogan. I think we should change from transforming politics into service, because I don't think politics is the solution. I don't want to do that.
Your connection...
I don't think that should be our slogan anymore.
If that is what... I kind of heard what you said. This idea that we should change our slogan. Well, if you wanted...
I do. I think our new slogan should be Red Pills and Revolution. And I don't think that politics is the answer.
Red Pills and Revolution. Okay. Or as Harachnu would say, free Palestine. That is... Yes. So the last story we're going to cover, which is, of course, the one that we like covering the most. So Jen has been kicked, and we'll see if she gets back, because the connection just kept going and going and going. You know how much the Luigi Mangione story matters to us. Why is it so significant? Why must we continue to talk about this? Well, for one thing, Mangione's story continues this week. He will be in court, I believe, on Friday. So the case will progress. He issued a statement, which we made a post on recently. I'll read it to you guys real quick. From Luigi Mangione, due to the extraordinary volume of increase and outpouring of support, this site was created and is maintained with Luigi. So here is a message from Luigi. If you could scroll down, please. I am overwhelmed by and grateful for everyone who has written me to share their stories and express their support. Powerfully, this support has transcended political, racial, and even class divisions. As mail has flooded MDC from across the country and around the globe, while it is impossible for me to reply to most letters, please know that I read every one that I receive. Thank you again to everyone who took the time to write. I look forward to hearing more in the future. Listen, this is why we're here. This is why we have his back. And so one of the things that apparently came across the wire just today is one of the biggest killers that we have in our broken health system is diabetes. It was the biggest COVID killer. And of course, we charge an arm and a leg, no pun intended, to you for you to get your insulin here in the United States. Well, it turns out that China apparently has come up with the cure for diabetes. And we, the only developed nation on earth with a for-profit health system, has been suppressing that information. So here we go.
There are reports out of China now that scientists have found a cure for diabetes, and the American pharmaceutical industry is not happy about it. There are now examples of Chinese patients receiving this experimental stem cell therapy and after about 11 weeks no longer requiring insulin, which I imagine is something that sounds amazing to people with diabetes, no longer having to poke yourself. But it doesn't sound amazing to giant American pharmaceutical companies like Eli Lilly, who currently dominate the insulin market and use it to make billions billions of dollars. And this has been very controversial as they've regularly increased the price of insulin, knowing that it's a necessary commodity that people with diabetes need to survive. And this is extra disgusting because the inventor of insulin, Frederick Banting, originally sold a patent for $1, saying that
Frederick Banting discovered insulin in 1921. He sold the patent for only $1. By 2016, drug makers had raised the price of insulin to $450 a month per average. Now, for seniors, I believe that's something that Trump did during his first term, and then Biden took credit for it. Reduced the price of insulin to $35 a month for seniors. Yeah. So how many Americans have diabetes? 38 million. Over 10% of the American population has diabetes. You don't think we have a health crisis? We have a food crisis, have a health crisis, education crisis, environmental crisis. Crisis is everywhere. They're not going away. And this is only more proof that what we're looking at is a beyond broken system. And whether you call it Medicare for all, I say single payer, we need the change. And we need it now.
insulin doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the world. And if people can be cured of diabetes so they no longer need insulin, obviously that would really cut into the demand for this product and cut into their profits. And here we see the contradictory nature of the for-profit American healthcare system. Innovation and advancements in medical technology are actually disincentivized if they have the potential to cure the patient and make it so they're no longer a repeat customer for the pharmaceutical industry. So much for capitalism promoting innovation and socialism destroying it. In reality, it's the opposite.
I believe it was Mark Twain that alluded to this idea that it is easier to fool a man than to convince them that they're being fooled. And that is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a nation of fools who have been fooled and can't admit that they have been fooled and are acting a fool by not changing course. This idea that we are the only developed nation on earth that doesn't have a universal healthcare system, and there are people who still want to suggest that the solution is not to do what every other developed nation on earth is able to do, which is basically a single-payer system. No system is perfect, but for God's sake, this system is beyond a dystopian nightmare. It deliberately kills people and keeps them sick for the purpose of profit. People sit around in a boardroom and make a decision. How many people do we have to kill in order to make our quarterly profit? Yeah, that's acceptable. We can deal with that. And you move on. It's cold-blooded, but they do it. Luigi is but merely a symbol, like the Dark Knight is merely a symbol that represents us and what we're trying to do to combat this broken, despicable system that should not exist. There's no excuses. We must see an end to this system. Hi, Jen. You're now part of the, I guess what you would call, what movie am I thinking of? Where basically you became part of the computer. You're a bit now. You're a phantom. You're not really here. So, Fuzzy Balls, you showed up, and so did David Hunter. Just think, we will never get a single-payer system, and billionaires will dismantle single-payer around the world. Dark and deep. Well, they may try, but that's one way to get people in the streets. Obama had a House and filibuster-proof Senate with 60 seats, despite what people want you to believe about Joe Lieberman, after running on universal health care, the biggest betrayal in America's history. Either that or bailing out the big bank. Listen, Obama is a failure in most ways when you measure his presidency. I'll say that Jen is in the Matrix. There you go. There you go, David. That's exactly what it is. But yeah, the more you look at all the things that have transpired over the past decade, the more you realize what a failure Obama really was. And that was a choice. People can say all they want about how it wasn't a choice. It was. It was an absolute choice to do what he did. He wanted to be rich, and he's rich, very rich. But at what cost? Sent our nation into a downward spiral, and it's going to be a very hard landing when we finally hit bottom. But we're getting close. Very, very close. So with that said, I don't know what's going to come of the Mangione case. I choose to be optimistic that something positive is going to come of it. We have to continue to talk about it, obviously. But as I mentioned, he is scheduled to appear in court at the end of the week. The case will continue. And that's a good reference, Victoria. He was a Seinfeld president. Although, according to Jen, we're not really supposed to talk about Seinfeld anymore since he's a Zio-Nazi like so many others. I do think that if we can have any semblance of hope for a bright future, the night is always darkest before the dawn. If there is any hope for the future, it rests within the idea that Mangione is just the beginning, that he represents exactly what we're fighting for, and we will continue to fight. So, for all of you that are here, we are extremely grateful for your support for our channel. Smash that like button, share and subscribe, and do all those things that we ask you to do. It really does make a difference. I think that, as Jen put it, our channel is going to evolve, and I look forward to that. And I hope you guys are enjoying it. Make sure to continue to spread the word. We'd like to grow a little faster, a little more effectively. Leave a comment on our posts. As soon as this live stream is over, drop a comment. Make sure it's liked. Keep spreading the word. We'll get it out there to as many people as we can. Thank you so much. Smash that like button, and we'll see you Thursday.